Now that we've talked about the different roles that a DNS server can play in a network, let's create those roles by creating our zones. And so this module talks about zones, and you'll notice that this slide looks almost exactly the same as the slide you saw in the previous module. And that's because to create a primary server, we set up a primary zone. The primary zone contains writable copy of the resource records for that zone. We'll create a standard primary or Active Directory integrated. Secondary stores a read-only copy, and we can also create a stub zone, which we'll talk about separately. This is new to Server 2003. So let's actually do this. The tool that we use is the DNS Management MMC, and we can do this a couple different ways. We can select the server itself, configure the server, and then go through a wizard interface where we select a forward lookup, both forward and reverse lookup zone, and go through a wizard and configure it that way. But I want to show you how to do it by just simply, and in fact I think this is easier, is right click and choose new zone. You can also do this forward lookup zone, new zone. So we'll select the server itself, right click, new zone. We're launched into the new zone wizard, and let's make this server a primary DNS server by configuring a primary zone. If your computer, if your Server 2003 system is a domain controller as well, you will have the option to store the zone information in Active Directory. We'll do that later on in this chapter, but not for right now. We'll just create a text file with the zone information. Click on Next. We're going to create a forward lookup zone here first, the zone name. Generally, you name the zone names the same as at least one of the domains for which the zone will be authoritative, but it doesn't have to be. Typically, again, use your organization's domain name. Create a new file, or we can use an existing file with information already in it, maybe that has been imported or merged from a Unix DNS solution, but we'll create a new file this time. This is just a text file that we can manage manually if we want to, although I think it's easier to do it through the MMC console. Click on Next. Now we have the choice about allowing dynamic updates. Again, dynamic updates, typically something you do with a DHCP solution, but for right now, I'm not going to allow dynamic updates. We finish, and then the new zone is created, and I've just established a primary DNS server. Here's the zone. Here are the resource records in that zone. We'll define more carefully the kinds of resource records in modules to follow. Now that we've done that, let's create a secondary. This server can be both a primary server and a secondary server at the same time. It will just be a primary for this zone. It'll be a secondary for another zone. So we'll right click, new zone, and this time choose secondary. Again, the secondary zone, the zone information exists on a different server, helps balance processing load, load balancing, and fault tolerance is why we create secondary zones. Next, forward lookup, zone name, primary.net. That zone file lives on this server, which is out in our test network here. Click on Next, and now Finish. And now there is the zone file. Hasn't been loaded yet. Might take a couple minutes to update. DNS MMC console is notorious for having problems updating itself, and you may run into problems like these, but in the next couple minutes this should resolve itself, or we should be able to resolve it by doing a refresh or just simply closing and reopening the DNS MMC. But these are the steps to find a secondary zone information.